Hi, Thomas.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well. Yeah. Thanks for joining. So, as you have seen on the agenda, hi, Josh. Thanks for joining. As you both seen on the agenda, like your presentation and demo is the first topic. So I will do some quick intro about hi, Josh, how the work we have done in app delivery tech could help with our, work in supply chain SIG to extend, the pipelines to production sizes, and then I will give you, the screen, and then you can do present and demo. Let's see who else will join. Hi, Kara. Thanks for joining. Last couple of days, the upstairs neighbor is doing renovations, so sorry for the noise.
Yeah, 2022 problems. My next door neighbor is redoing their pool, so they've been drilling and all kinds of stuff. I'm in my basement now.
Yeah, I hope they are close to finishing their renovation, because, when you work from home, and it's very difficult to do anything. Like reading is impossible, constant noise.
Yeah.
So normally we get around 10 people to our meetings, so we can give 1 or 2 more minutes and then slowly start. I can send a notice. So let us start with the agenda first, and then we can talk about the technical advisory group, app delivery, and PodTatoHead. So, as written on the agenda, the first point is action item review, which I believe we don't have any action items from previous week. And then we will have a presentation and demo from you, Thomas and Josh. And then the other topic in the agenda was actually brought up by Liora, because we have been talking about some kind of proof of concept using SIG Software Factory and perhaps PodTatoHead, and she said we could perhaps start looking at documenting some kind of terminology for software supply chain from CI/CD perspective, like pipeline stages and steps. So that is the other topic. And if anyone wants to add any other topic, please do that, so we can talk about that as well. So now I think I can stop sharing, and perhaps Thomas and Josh, you could take over sharing. And just to give a little bit of background about why I reached out to you, Thomas and Josh, to learn more about what you are doing in Tag App Delivery and PodTatoHead. As I was saying at the beginning of the meeting, we want to have a bit practical approach to software supply chain, not just documenting vocabulary or discussing the typical pipeline stages organizations may employ to secure their software supply chains. And one thing we noticed is like the majority of the conversation happens the left end of the software delivery life cycle, if you put that way. Like most focus is on like how to make sure people use up-to-date dependencies, how policies can be employed to block some images with vulnerabilities or super user rights and so on. But there is not much conversation around what to do actually with the things that are running in production. Like if some vulnerability is disclosed for something that is part of our container which is running in production, then how we can get those things fixed. And like for left-hand side of the software development lifecycle, Secure Software Factory and those folks have done great work there, like CNCF tax security. And when it comes to right, and we need something there to bridge this, connect these two things. And when I was looking at what we have done with PodTatoHead, we have this like how different deployment strategies could be employed to put stuff on production and so on. And that was kind of idea. Okay, maybe we can put these together and look at this and then software flow life cycle, and then poke things there from supply chain perspective. And thus we have you, Thomas, and Josh with us. Now, with that introduction, yeah.
I actually have a question on that. What I was hearing from you, I'm going to put it slightly in my own words, is that a lot of the effort around secure supply chain is at build time, like make sure all the right build components, but there's nothing that's like at runtime that's like, are they still okay?
Yeah, exactly. Same thing, different words. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks.
Yeah. So feel free to start sharing and,
Okay. Yes, so hello also from my side. So for those who don't know me, my name is Thomas. I'm tech lead at the Tech App Delivery, furthermore maintainer of the Captain project. And today I want to bring you, I want to tell you some basics about the Tech App Delivery. And my colleague Josh, who is one of the most active contributors to the PodTatoHead and also chair of the Cooperative Delivery Working Group in the Tech App Delivery, will show you something about the PodTatoHead. So you will hear about what the Tech App Delivery is, what our role in the whole ecosystem is, what our work is, which working groups are involved in our work, and yes, some demo about the PodTatoHead. So when you think about the CNCF itself, it has some kind of structure. So there is a governing board with a marketing committee. There is the famous technical oversight committee and the end user community. And on the technical oversight committee, there are some tags attached. So such as the tech security, tech app delivery, tech network, and whatever. And we as the Tech App Delivery are one of those. And we help them whenever they need advice on application delivery topics and so on. So what's our mission? So we as a tech, we are there to collaborate on all areas related to developing and so on. Cloud native applications also for delivery and so on. Furthermore, we are here to create informational resources and educational material. I will also step into this a bit later, and also to identify suitable products and gaps in the landscape. So we have some kind of overlap to the CDF, to be honest. Yes, and one of the things, which is also one of the things we have to do, is helping the TOC with assessments and also with the due diligence of new projects. So when projects get to incubation or to graduation, it's up to us to help the TOC whenever it comes to technical stuff. Okay, so what's the scope of the Tech App Delivery? So it's starting with application definition. So how does an application look like, and similar things. It's also about guidance and practices for app design and development. It's about application bundling and deployment. So with projects like CNAP and Helm and whatever. It's also coming to package management. It's going to application delivery workflow and strategy and configuration source-driven workflow, just like GitOps and so on. The same one for release management. There is a model defined for, so everything you saw before has been put into a model, and this is also a thing we evaluate when we do some due diligences and whatever. Also, we see where some topic areas live, so things like infrastructure and so on. So Kubernetes lives in the topic area of infrastructure. Operators live in the topic area of workload instances and automation and operation. Then we have application operation and rollout, which is also which also consists of CI/CD. We have the application packaging and application definition, which includes Helm, build packs, Kubila, and whatever. So what are we doing in our daily work? We are doing tag meetings about every 2 weeks, so each first and third Wednesday of the month. So everyone is free to join discussions and talk to us. There we discuss app delivery trends and topics. We do some project presentations. So if a project, whether it's part of the CNCF or not, wants to present its project and want to discuss things, we are open for that, and they can present there. These are the on-demand presentations. The second ones are these presentations which are needed for incubation and graduation proposals. Another things we cover here are project updates. So when there are news to projects, they can also be handled there. Furthermore, also our working groups do regular updates in the tag meetings. Furthermore, as I said before, we are supporting the TOC, so we are helping with due diligences and project reviews. And last but not least, we are creating educational resources. So until now, we published one white paper, which is the operator white paper, and which gets revisited and reviewed in the next few months. Furthermore, we will try to publish more blog posts about app delivery and related topics. And last but not least, we want to create scenario-oriented example configurations, and this is the point where the PodTatoHead kicks in. So we wanted to give people example configurations how they can use particular delivery tools. Okay, and the tag has also at the moment three working groups. The first one is the Kiosk engineering working group, which primary goal is to create a white paper about Kiosk engineering. The second one is I think the most famous one of our three working groups. This is the GitOps working group. Their goal is to define a vendor-neutral, principle-led meaning of GitOps. So they also created the principles of GitOps, and all of their output is stored in the Open GitOps project, which is a sandbox project at the moment, I think. And last but not least, I think Josh can tell us something about the cooperative delivery working group. So
you want to refresh that slide, Thomas? I did get a brief fix that up. Slide 8.
So I'll try to restart the slideshow.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, the cooperative delivery group is just identifying patterns, emerging patterns, products that facilitate integration, delivery and integration of apps with underlying infrastructure. So like things like the service binding operator is on our radar, cross-plane or things that allow us to use the same APIs, for apps and infrastructure, multi-tenancy, how we can provide lots of apps independence, but in the same services. Those are the kinds of things we're thinking about. Yeah, I guess I could keep going from here, Thomas. Yeah, so I think there's a good summary at the top line here that the PodTatoHead, I'll just give a brief background on the goals. It was created, I guess about a year and a half ago. I think the project started, and it was about a showcase so that architects and engineers could come in and understand a bunch of different options for doing app delivery. So going from the simple kubectl, Helm, customize, rendering, to Flux and Argo CD, and a few things like CNAB is in there, Captain, and a few other ones, all deploying the same app so that and immediately usable. Go in, follow the README, and you can get up and running and compare and contrast and go from there. In the past, I guess about a year now, we've been adding more and more documents, refining them, and also adding tests. So it's all actually every scenario is accompanied by a test that automates what's in the README. Yes, let's see. One other thing to mention before I jump into the actual demo is that that we originally we focused on delivery scenarios, but we've been, we see a potential use for more kinds of scenarios. And that's, I've been watching things that are happening. I actually opened an issue and I can share it with you, to kind of, talk about how we would run this. But we see things like observe K8S, that's from the observability tag in CNCF. The Open GitOps project, one of their main goals is to actually provide some examples too. You guys, I saw the SIG POC that you linked, Fatih, which I want to take a look at. So it seems like a lot of people are making these efforts. Yeah, so I guess I'm really happy that we're here talking to you, because maybe we can combine forces. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. And I only have one screen today because I'm stuck in my basement. So bear with me. You can see your mirrors over there. And so I wrote down some apps, and what I've got here is, so I wrote down some notes here to make sure we cover the things I want to talk about. But I've got the repo up here in VS Code. It's connected back to via SSH to a server that actually has Kubernetes running on it. So I think the first thing to show you is just gonna be, I'm gonna spin up PodTatoHead and show you what it looks like. Yeah, let's just do that. And then we'll walk back through the repo real quick. So can you see that? Should I make it bigger? All right, a little bigger. Like I mentioned, I guess this, I'm kind of talking about repo structure here. So if we look at the repo structure, we've actually got two examples of things to deploy. Originally, there was just the single service PodTatoHead server, and that's just one, builds one Docker image. It runs one service that kind of includes everything. And then we broke it up into microservices where we build actually 6 different images and run one entry point service, and then five services that serve up the parts. Then within the delivery folder, this is all of our delivery scenarios. And what I'm going to show you now, I'm going to use the chart one, which is the Helm chart. That uses the microservices example, and it deploys it out with that. The test script deploys it all out in, kind of opinionated way, but it follows basically what the README walks you through. So they're meant to be in parallel. So what I'm going to run here, every one of the test scripts has a flag, an environment variable, wait for delete, so that you can run it and pause it after the tests, which we're going to utilize right now. It's always much more fun to do it on the fly, so that's why we're doing this. But I tested it earlier today, so it's not totally on the fly. Now what I'm going to use is, I don't have a load balancer service, even though this says it's looking for a load balancer service. I just have a node port, so I'm going to forward that port. This is a nice little helper VS Code that I like to use. And that's just the SSH tunnel. I just didn't bother typing the command. So you see what happened here. We got hello from PodTatoHead. This is this service that's running over there. Oops. If you know what, let's see if we can bring up the developer tools to kind of see the calls that were made. Never did this before, but I think it would be helpful. You could see we actually called first, well, the actual entry point. Excuse me. And then we actually call through that entry point to get each individual part, which gets rendered into this image. So what happens is that when I call this this URL, it goes through the entry point, but then the entry point sends it on to the back end. In fact, if I would do a kubectl logs for PodTatoHead entry, I could see it kind of helps request. The request that came in was part name image. Here's the thing that it needs to go to next. Sorry, we're in the way there. And then it sends on the request to the next service. So if I did a kubectl logs for PodTatoHead left arm, you would see those requests ultimately coming in from the entry point to this back end, and then they come back through. The main point of this, and certainly if you have recommendation of improving the core app, that's fine. The main point was just to have a microservices app. Yeah, let's see. Go back to my notes here. So we got that up and running. Yeah, so that was, I wanted to illustrate, if I take this down now, I could run the same thing. I'm not going to actually take it down. I'm just going to Control C out of this little trick so that I can keep it up and running. But I could do the same kind of thing, wait for delete, and do customize or flux, all the ones that have been updated, even operator. There's one that will actually deploy out, build an entire operator for you and deploy it out. So that's kind of fun. So that's the delivery scenarios. The next thing I wanted to show you is an example of where we're kind of looking at other scenarios here. And this is, again, it's just a proof of concept of these scenarios. It's an initial basic one, but we've had a couple issues where people have opened where they have wanted to try out service mesh stuff and service discovery. So just to kind of show how we might do it, I put in this example of how to change it easily. So, if I was rolling out a new service, a new hat service where I wanted to serve instead of this hat, a pirate hat, this walks through how you would do that. Use the scenario of the base chart. We will change PodTatoHead man's hat by returning a different URL, sorry, or whatever people call it. The same way you could follow the steps in the README, but also here there's a test script, which doesn't do very much. It just installs the Helm chart that's in this folder. So I will just do that. Let's see, scenarios, service discovery, test. And what this is just doing is adding another chart, which is adding another service. The way that PodTatoHead is set up is that it looks to a config map to determine where to find those backend services. So like I said, kind of basic service discovery at this point. But yeah, it shows how you could do it. So I'll just show you. So now I've actually deployed, I deployed another pod, which becomes another service. Also, PodTatoHead ext hat beta. And then I can modify kubectl edit config map, something PodTatoHead service discovery, and PodTatoHead, which one did we change? Hat. This is, yeah, like I said, this could be streamlined, but at least it's there. So I changed that. I also, because config maps changes don't automatically trigger the restart of the pod. So, and I don't have, a function for that. I just have to go ahead and kill that pod. But once it comes back up, if all goes well, I should be able to refresh this and get his pirate hat. Sorry, nobody cheers for you anymore. Yeah, so that's an example. So that's kind of, to kind of show what where, we might add in other scenarios, like in that folder, like if we wanted a secure image build scenario or something. So yeah, so I wanted to show this specifically because we're talking to you all and you're talking about supply chain security. I wanted to kind of just show you the way we do image builds, because I feel like that might be a place where you build on or contribute. So what we have in there now, and it should all run. Thomas says it runs on his too, so I'm happy to hear that. If I say PodTatoHead microservices build images, actually no, we even have a make task. Let's just do build microservices images. It just runs through and runs a bunch of typical tasks to build them. And they all end up calling back to here. It's really pretty straightforward, to be honest. It's just a build image script, which does the things we want to do at build time. So Docker build with some tags. And then a couple things we already did, but probably you all know how to do it better. If we find cosine on the path, then we go ahead and do cosine. If we find trivia on the path, then we do a trivia scan. These are all at build time, to what Fatih was saying. So we don't have an example of anything at like runtime. Yeah, so that's how we do the builds. You can see them all happening in the back. One thing I did want to show, and I submitted a PR for this, for the individual server, it's still using that same, actually I take it back. No, it's not using that function. So there's an update to do. But anyway, it's got this build image and we have this test image. This might help you all for inner loop. So I added this morning. I have to merge. The wait for delete thing is there too. But I'll just go ahead and show that. If I do PodTatoHead server, what was that, build test image, and I'll do a wait for delete just for the, and that should wake it up or build the image, and then I should be able to curl it localhost 9000. And you could see there's the HTML that's actually behind Mr. PodTatoHead. So that's a way for you all, if that's something you focus on, if you focus on the image build, and I'm just guessing, you could use that that stuff, test image, build image from the individual service. Oh yeah, okay, so those are the three things I kind of wanted to show: the delivery scenarios, the other use cases, and how we're doing image builds. One thing that I also wanted to show and mention is that we're using GitHub Actions to run all of these tests. So we've got 3 that are oriented around microservices, just building and testing. And we have a set here which actually runs, test the kubectl delivery. It's just running a shell script, test the Helm delivery, test customize, test catch, test flux, operator. So you all could build on that. You could add to those. I wrote down here to ask you if you're interested in contributing a Tekton example, since you folks are CDF. It's easy to use GitHub because we're already hosted there and it's free to us pretty much. But yeah, this is I like to have the GitHub Actions called generic scripts rather than rely on their built-in stuff. But that's an opinion, I guess. So we can talk about that the reason I like to do that, to be honest, is because it does facilitate using GitLab instead, or using Tekton instead. So hopefully you can just call a make task if you wanted to, do a Tekton thing here. Yeah, I think I guess I'll open up for questions for Thomas and me. These are just notes that I took from before.
Actually, I have 2 questions, but you actually touched both of them. Like, I was going to ask Tekton because when I was looking at the PodTatoHead repo, I couldn't see Tekton there. And as I mentioned, like, the Secure Software Factory uses Tekton, and like possibility of introducing Tekton to PodTatoHead, which you answered as well. Like, yeah, you can contribute Tekton there. So that is something we could perhaps look at contributing to PodTatoHead. And the other thing I was going to ask was having additional scenarios that changes the PodTatoHead image, which you have demonstrated as well with Red Hat, it's like a pirate hat on the PodTatoHead. So I guess that is yet another contribution to, or maybe an issue on your repo, first talking about what kind of scenario we could have to demonstrate those things using PodTatoHead, and then bring that scenario to life, like how you did that for other type of scenarios.
Changing the separate components of the PodTatoHead is already possible at the moment, because there are different versions of each component there. So you can change the head of the PodTatoHead by specifying another version somewhere. I think Josh knows better where.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways. Change it. It's an environment variable in the microservices.
I think so, yes.
Yeah. I was like, sorry if others have any questions, please jump in, because like identifying problematic deployment like the PodTatoHead with pirate hat, and then reacting, oh, something is wrong with thing because we just got some vulnerability announced, which is like could be read, pirate hat, and then making another deployment with the correct thing could be a scenario, I suppose. So
so I think the only thing you have to do is to push one faulty container somewhere, deploy this, and afterwards change to the right one, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to help dive in. I mean, the hard part is always the implementation, getting somebody to do it. But yeah, like I had actually, as part of this, I kind of tried to summarize the overall goal, provide a collection of patterns in a development framework, like a framework for how to contribute new patterns. So I kind of talked about, here's how we should do it. Here's the proposed process. So, if you want to provide a new pattern, propose and discuss it in a repo, implement it with these steps, try to use shared foundations. So yeah, if you want to, we can continue the discussion there, or, I provided one example, which I still haven't done. Like I said, the devil's in the implementation, but this was where I was like, hey, this I think is a valuable scenario to make clearer to people with an example. So, if you want to do it that way, either opening a request here in Tag App Delivery or over in PodTatoHead, I think would be a good way to start.
So it was 167, that issue.
Yeah.
So I can link it in our minutes.
Yeah, that would be great.
Is this intended to be the long-term branding for this project?
I have no strong opinions on that. This is just something fun.
I also have no opinion on that. So
I'm just wondering from a take-up perspective, whether people are going to be put off by the name because it doesn't align to the seriousness of the functionality, if you like.
That's fair feedback, but it would be hard to switch out the core app at this point. We don't have to call it PodTatoHead.
So in the beginning, it was intended to be a simple application which has no. So to be honest, this has no real use case. So the application itself is only the only purpose is to switch over components of itself, and the figure you see there is the PodTatoHead. So this was the reason why it's called PodTatoHead. But it might be that they get that we have another name for that in the future, but I think it won't get more serious than now. Just related to the use case it has.
It's a demonstration of a capability rather than it intended to be a shared capability that others are going to build on top of.
Mm-hmm.
But there's room for that. Like we have these two, base apps. I think maybe we'd say that it's not about the apps in this case, it's about the scenarios around them. But if we want a more relevant app, like let's add another one there, that would be totally fine. And we could even, if we want to make this broader, whatever is necessary. I feel like let's let's create a common foundation. So, you know, if it needs to include a couple other things, then let's do it. You know, let's not have to solve the problem a lot of times.
Anyone else? Any questions, comments?
You know, another one that I found, SIG observability is all, or no,
Tag observability.
yeah, but it's actually not them. It's the Open Telemetry. Open Telemetry, and I'm trying to remember how to search for it. Open Telemetry SIG demo. They just started this. I can find it. Give it a white paper. There it is. This might also be something. There's a few of these, and I'm just kind of tracking them. Community demo for Open Telemetry. So, and this is, and there's another effort within CNCF called Observe K8S, which is also, I guess it's not Open Telemetry specifically, but they're also kind of looking into this. Then you guys had that SIG POC that you mentioned. So it seems like we all have the same idea. So
yeah, can you put the link to meeting minutes, Josh? I can't read it. So.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, again, as I like at the beginning, I was talking about the secure software factory. That is a reference implementation for, or I should use the right term. So SSF is the reference implementation of secure software factory reference architecture that came out of CNCF tag security, supply chain security work group, I believe. And we got a presentation and demo from Michael from that group. And then as we were talking, like that focus on more build time aspects and then whatever runtime aspects to have this end-to-end coverage. And now you are showing this telemetry thingy, like, as you said, like we all seem to be doing similar things and how we can, you know, bring these things together to have more complete, you know, showcase for such things. Yeah, I guess we need to continue talking with each other.
Yeah, I think that's my current take on it also, is just that's why I'm so happy to present this to you, and I'm keeping an eye and just saying, hey, check out PodTatoHead, because it seems like, yeah, getting bootstrapped is a hard part. So here it's bootstrapped, just make the changes that we need.
And also all these groups have like certain focus, like you look at app delivery, we look at like CI/CD aspects, the OpenSSF folks, they look at more, you know, build time and security aspects, and Open Telemetry, they look at what they are good at. And it's like, yeah, we all look at certain things, and then, yeah, I think putting these things, again, I'm not saying wanting to rule them all, but some kind of, you know, collaboration across all these different efforts, just repeating myself. Yeah. So before we move on, any last comments, questions, ideas to Josh and Thomas while they are here? Because I think you need to leave for some other meeting. Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. So before you leave, if there is no other question, I can perhaps quickly talk about what we have been talking about to you, Josh and Thomas, and you can take a look at the document as well, which we kind of, it's brain dump. It's not complete and it will continue evolving. Like, as I noted, like when we first proposed this new SIG to CD foundation, one of the ideas was like, take a look at how SIG events approach their, you know, discussions around using events for CI/CD, and one of the first things they have done in their SIG is to bring up a POC so people can read their documents and also play with the POC to, you know, understand what they are trying to do better. And that's what we also think of doing. And to get that conversation started around setting up a proof of concept, we have this document here, which is very, you know, high level. It doesn't go into details. And then some references here, and PodTato app delivery is, or PodTato is here together with SSF. And then while we were talking about this, Leora mentioned like we should perhaps first identify some terms around these pipelines and stages. And then this kind of took us to the special interest group interoperability, because there's an existing work there initiated by Anne-Marie from Red Hat. She put a lot of time and effort to document different stages within typical pipeline, like build stage, test stage, release, deploy stage. And then she didn't stop there. She also started documenting different steps under different stages, which could be reused across different stages or specific certain stages. And then today I actually sent another PR to actually add some extra new stages to what she put there. Like, okay, the current stages document on the vocabulary document looks at the typical, build, deploy type of stages. But what about supply chain specific stages? And that is where we are at the moment. And these things, once we have some consensus around them, these things could then be used for bringing up the POC as well. Like, okay, we identified this open source introduction stage, which we need to do some kind of license checks or community health checks, how they can be made part of the secure software factory, perhaps. And then when we walk through the end-to-end CI/CD pipeline or software flow, then we will hit runtime aspects as well, and they will probably appear as additional stages in the document and then reflect to the POC. So that is what we have been discussing during past couple of weeks. So if you are interested in contributing to these discussions, the PRs are there in multiple repos, SIG software supply chain and SIG interoperability. So
we'll definitely take a look on this. Yes.
Yeah, I'd actually been tracking. I saw when they proposed making the POC for SIG CD events, and I've been watching that. Yeah, it's nice to see the progress. I'm going to try to read that all over too. Thank you.
Okay. And the other thing, just to highlight again, this, I think there was a webinar yesterday, CD events webinar, and I actually asked the question like, okay, now against CD events, I see Emil with us. The current concern for CD events is like to, document the typical CI/CD relevant events. And like, I asked like, what is the possibility of having some supply chain type of events, like a vulnerability disclosed event type of thing. So things could converge over time, putting these different things together as well. Yeah, that's where we are. So Josh, Thomas, thanks for taking your time to join us. But you can stick around if you have time, because we can move to next topic now, which is this topic.
Thanks. I'm going to listen.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cool. So just to repeat again for everyone, now going back to our proof of concept document. Here, this is again a simple diagram talking about like how we can perhaps bring up the proof of concept, and it looks at two main things, like development side of things, like when a developer brings a new open source component, for example, and how that component could be introduced for product development in a secure and compliant manner. And the second aspect is the production or runtime aspects, like how you put it, Josh. And some high-level activities are documented on this HackMD document, like introducing a FOSS, storing that FOSS to a known organizational trusted repository, and then building our own dependencies, because sometimes the dependencies, when communities make the artifacts available, they may not be signed, or they may not be secure. So how organizations could actually rebuild their own dependencies for internal product development. And then Liora mentioned like maybe we should take this and turn this into a terminology, which is what I sent a PR for. And if I open the file. So simply I turned what is documented on the HackMD document into the format Anne-Marie creates for documenting typical stages. So the three stages I documented on the PR is like source software introduction stage. It's like what this stage does, what are the aliases, what are the inputs, like what is the upstream URL of source code repository of the open source software version, and policies, what kind of output it generates, and what kind of side effects this stage could have. And same for storage and consumption stages as well. And currently this is up for review. And once we have some kind of consensus, then the next step could be creating steps that may be specific to these stages, or some of the existing steps could be reused under these different stages. And with that, I stop talking because I've been talking a lot and just want to hear your quick feedback. I know you haven't had a chance to look at this PR yet, but just to ask, like, does this make sense? Should we start documenting these typical stages for supply chain in same manner as Anne-Marie did for other stages, or should we try something different? Okay. Like Josh, we didn't clap when you put pirate hat on the PodTatoHead, so I got same experience right now. Silence.
Sorry, but yeah, I'm silent. But I'm trying to wrap my head on what this would mean. So that's why I'm silent still. So it seems to be interesting, at least. Sure. I'm not yet sure if it's worth to call these different stages, but maybe. Or if it's rather steps in some other existing stage, but for sure, I do see the use case you're trying to show here.
Yeah, I think Anne-Marie had a similar comment there, like instead of making one of them as a separate stage, why not a step? So let me open the pull request to show that. Because, yeah, why did you decide to make these 3 stages? Like, again, this is just a quick PR based on what is documented on the document, but like I call them tasks here, but these different things could perhaps be considered as steps, because like license copyright identification, like it could be considered as a separate step under introduction stage.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, that could contribute to final evaluation result. Like if an open source component is not using one of the organizational approved licenses, then that step could simply flag that as a policy violation, contributing to final evaluation results saying that, okay, this open source component is good, but the license is not in the approved license list. So it must not be used, kind of thinking. Similar with other stages, like different, like under storage, for example, dependency analysis using, code analysis tools could be a separate stage, a step, identifying dependencies for a given open source component. And then another step could download those different dependencies and store them. So again, that is how it was difficult for me to wrap my head around as well. So I start simple way to call all of them stages, sorry. And then create steps or reuse existing steps, and Mary created or documented there.
I'm thinking about the storing stage there. What's the difference between storing and publishing something? It sounds like the storing step that would be storage stage, sorry, would be publish something internally that exists externally.
Yeah, you can store, but you may not be able to make it available for organization, assuming that you may have some policies there, and until that thing is deemed adhering to those policies, they can't be published for further consumption because of, again, some license issues, for example. So you have the code in your trust repository, the source code of the open source component, but it shouldn't be consumed or introduced to product development organization as something reusable component because it hasn't passed whatever checks the organization may have. So again, publish or making them available for consumption could be considered as another step, perhaps as last step in storage. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It could be a step in storage then, but
yeah.
So I guess that could be true for internal software as well. That you need to, before you actually publish it for public use internally.
Yeah.
You might need to do similar things that you would do in this stage.
Yeah. Again, introduction and storage, like introduction is kind of first step in approving the use of a certain open source component. And once that stage is done, that open source component could be taken by the storage stage, doing additional stuff. But if it fails to pass introduction, there is no point storing that because it is like it failed to, adhere to organizational policies.
I think my concern is that this doesn't feel very DevOpsy in terms of the way it's structured. So whilst it aligns to a lot of corporate approaches to managing software, it's tending towards we'll set up a department to do each of these phases and it'll all be done manually and you can apply in writing and in 6 months' time we'll tell you whether or not you can use this piece of software. So I'm worried that we're maybe not communicating the real-time automation demands of this, where really we want to be dealing with things that arise at build time and evaluate them to see if it's acceptable to use them without having to do any pre-preparation in order for the build to run. So if these are things that need to happen, then they're things that should be completely automated with exception processes around challenging situations, but the goal being to have a totally automated evaluation of everything that can work as near real time as possible, so that we're getting our lead times down to that minimum value.
Yeah, I actually assumed the automation. So I assumed automation by default. Reading through this, I assumed the vast majority of this would be automated, but maybe that needs to be made explicit.
Yeah, just to describe my thinking, like I have this developer here. You can see this diagram. Yeah, it's a very simple diagram. But what I was thinking when I was documenting this and putting up the PR, like let's assume I am a developer. I found a cool technology and I am working on my IDE. And like whenever I introduce a dependency in my code, things start happening behind the scenes. Like how I think this scaffold type of tools, it does things real time behind the scenes, like building image and pushing it to Kubernetes cluster and then running things and giving feedback on developer's ID, for example, or how VS Code does. So again, I was dreaming or imagining something like that. Okay, I introduce a dependency, open source dependency, and then things happen behind the scenes. And if that dependency is already vetted and made available for organizations' consumption, I shouldn't get a warning on my ID. I should just live my life happily. But if it is the first time that dependency is introduced, I should get some kind of indication, oh, this dependency is not, vetted or approved to use. But don't worry, we kicked the tires, things started happening, and then I don't know how long it takes, but then the developer gets some kind of, pop-up or whatever. I know, just kind of thinking that way.
Yeah, and I think in that way, it doesn't really contradict the DevOps approach, really. It's more about the logical steps that need to be taken to still even a DevOps team needs some some sort of structure in the way they use open source software. So that assuming automation is a must here, I think. And then it wouldn't contradict, I believe. I like it, by the way, Fatih. You didn't add me to the PR, but now I see it. It's nice.
It was on purpose.
I know.
But yeah, Terry, yeah, I completely agree with your comment there. But yeah, this is not an easy problem to deal with, but just, you know, start the conversation.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, and I put some feedback on the original document, is that I don't feel we're giving enough consideration to the versioning problem as part of our software supply chain viewpoint, because that's something that turns a lot of these things into being real-time issues rather than being things that you can cache decisions long-term. So the challenge is if you're trying to evaluate something and then mark it as good, then clearly you have to look at one version of that thing at a moment in time and make a decision. But because you're in a constantly changing environment, that decision may not hold valid for very long. And there are lots of external factors that can invalidate something that was previously cached as good. So we have to consider the caching problem and cache invalidation as part of this overarching supply chain problem. Hence why, if you can go to the other optimization, which is to do it all in real time, then you eliminate all the problems that come along with that cache invalidation scenario.
Is it not assumed now that best practices would be storing the artifacts with like pinned to a version and all the dependencies for that version, and that this is just a process to continue updating, and that this is part of that process? And I mean,
yes, but what I'm saying is that if you're doing an evaluation on something, you're evaluating it against the best knowledge you have at the time you run the evaluation. So if you do a security evaluation on something, you're scanning it using the tools that you've got and the CVEs that you know about at the time you run the scan. Mm-hmm. But of course, then new CVEs can get exposed, and that invalidates your previous decision. Yeah. So caching is risky when it comes to some of these supply chain problems. So it's yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking you could have checks on that, like you could have some sort of quality gates, and you have to just be X one more factor you just have to keep track of. Like, how else would you handle that?
Yeah, but again, you're starting to get in that situation where you need to run all your checks again on every build, because you can't rely on the quality of what's cached. So this is one of the discussions that we have to factor into this, is we have to explain these trade-offs and risks in the process when you bring versioning across the supply chain into play. And of course, it's actually much worse than that, because you're part of that supply chain and you're providing product downstream to other customers who are relying on you. And then you're trapped in this time cycle of, even if you detect a problem and fix it and release a new version, you've got a whole bunch of customers who potentially cannot work at the same cadence as you and are still relying on previous versions. And depending on your contract with them, you may have to maintain previous versions and a current version for an overlapping period of time. So there's a lot of things that mix into this that make it subtle and quite horrible as a problem to solve. So we need to be able to communicate that and show the nuance of, you know, you can tweak these knobs, but it will affect your overall risk profile and affect what you're able to do contractually and your contractual exposure.
I see time is up, but this was a great conversation. So then we'll obviously continue discussing these things. But Terry, like, I don't know, I haven't checked if you have put comment on the PR, but I took notes. I will try to comment on the PR directly, some of these things. But can you please add your comments there so we capture those things? Like automation, DevOps is one key aspect, and then this caching problem and so on. Again, I don't know if the PR is the right way to do it, but somehow we need to capture these things and include them in our thinking. And we continue discussing those things. So with that, I think we are 1 minute over time. So I want to thank everyone again. I see Josh, you are still with us. Thanks for staying till the end. So our next meeting will be on 12th of May, and I don't remember if we have presentation scheduled for it. Just quickly checking that. Yeah, cartographer was scheduled, but this morning I learned James won't be available. Maybe we can continue for this conversation during our next meeting. Terry, you may need to, you know, remind us the things, because some people may hear those things first time when they join during the next meeting, and then we take it from there. And the PR is there, so everyone is welcome to comment. And as I noted, that is just quick brain dump, and we can change whatever needs to be changed there as well. So with that, I thank all of you again, and then we see each other in 2 weeks. Have a nice rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you for the
Bye.
potato head demo. I'm all for that silly wrapper, by the way.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.